Good afternoon, everybody. It's that time again. It's Tuesday. It's 12 o'clock noon Pacific Standard Time. And happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Lunchtime Live with me, your host, Jeff. Anyway, I'm glad that you can stop by. I'm glad you can join me today. Today I'm hoping to address the topic around emotions. Things that we might be feeling but maybe not even understanding while we're here in this splendid isolation or self-quarantine, whatever you want to call it. I mean, basically what I'm hoping to talk about today is not just the emotions that we're feeling, but how we're coping with them and what mechanisms we could potentially use to help cope better with those, right? So there's a lot of sadness and kind of just depression, sensation that we're not doing very well. We feel sad, we feel emotional. We're not always quite sure what those emotions are that we're feeling. So that could be anxiety, it could be fear, it could be joy, it could be happiness, it could be contentment. Whatever it is that you're feeling is valid. It's these emotions are all valid for you to feel. You feel whatever it is that you feel. The good thing is that as humans, we can regulate our emotions. We can regulate our feelings, and a lot of that is done through the breath. And we've talked about breath work in the past. But if you're feeling sad or depressed or anxious even, one of the things that you can do is these breathing techniques. Another thing that you can do is listen to music, to soothing, calming music. You could just sit and read a book. There's nothing that says that you have to go out and do something. Sometimes we want to do physical exercise to make ourselves feel better, and that's actually not a bad thing to do, because physical exercise releases endorphins and also serotonin, which are the happy substances within our brains, that control our hormones and make us feel better. So these are a couple things that we can do. If you're angry or you're frustrated, or even if you're restless, you can go out and get some physical exercise. You can, smash things if you've got stuff to smash. You can, crank up loud music and just rock out, do whatever you want to do. There's all sorts of things that you can do to regulate your emotions, but breathing is actually still one of the critical things. So being in touch with your breath, whether it's yogic breath or not, is a really good way of calming yourself and of releasing these frustrations, this sort of sense of sadness or depression or anxiety or fear or whatever it may be. The other thing is to notice what you're thinking, right? And when you're thinking it, right? It's hard to do that. It takes practice. So oftentimes we're thinking a million miles a minute. The Buddhists call it monkey brain, right? Because you're chattering like a monkey and you're inside your head. And oftentimes we don't understand that we're doing it, or we don't recognize that we're doing it. So that raises our anxiety and frustration levels. And oftentimes we just fail to just recognize that, and then that that hinders us from regulating our emotions and our feelings at the same time. So, so there's all sorts of, like I say, strategies around this that you can use, and we can talk about those shortly. But I just wanted to sort of get a sense for, what is it that we're feeling? What is it that you're feeling as an individual while you're out there, while you're, sheltering in place, or, in your splendid isolation and whatnot? I mean, anybody who wants to pipe in and contribute and tell me what they're feeling or what they're thinking or what emotions they're experiencing during this period, it would be great to hear from you. I'd love to hear from others and find out what's going on in other people's lives and minds. it's also nice to engage and connect with people here virtually. And, for me, that's bringing me joy. It's making me happy that I'm, in some way contributing to, our collective sanity right now. If there's a way to do that. I guess that, my own experience with anxiety and failure to control my emotions has really led me to explore, the emotionality and the sense of what it is that I feel and when I feel them, and being able to identify and to to understand what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and what I'm sensing at any one time. That's kind of important, because if you don't understand what you're feeling or what emotion it is that's coursing through your body or whatever, you really lack the resource then to control that emotion, which is why breathing is so powerful and so important in regulating your emotions and your feelings. Thinking. Right? We talked about thinking and how our brains just kind of can go into overdrive when we're anxious or we're fearful or we're scared or we're angry or we're sad or we're depressed or we're lonely. All of those feelings, all of those emotions are valid. Okay? Whatever it is that you are feeling, it's okay. You are entitled to feel however you are, right? However you're feeling. Whatever emotions you are sensing in the moment, that is, you're okay with that. Okay, so I'm not invalidating anything that you may be feeling or sensing or whatever. But what I'm talking about here is, how do we as humans, in a time when there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of challenges, how do we help ourselves by regulating our own emotions and feelings and sensations and thoughts? Because the emotions are really powerful, and you can have thousands and thousands of thoughts around one emotion, right? That emotion can be fear, for instance, and you will have probably millions of thoughts in your lifetime around fear, okay, and around your fears. If you can identify the root cause of that fear, you can eliminate millions of thoughts that are racing through your head, by simply just addressing that deep underlying fear. Obviously, that then leaves your mind capable or open enough to other things that you can identify, identifiable characteristics of your own sort of existence and your reality. And fear really is, for the most part, the mind going to the worst case scenario in many cases. Fear is one of our most, in many cases, unfounded of emotions and feelings. So, we always think, well, what's, God, the worst is going to happen, the worst is going to happen, the worst is going to happen. But the reality is that, and I often say this to people, well, what is the worst that's going to happen, right? We've talked about it before. You're born and you die, right? There's this thing in between called life, and you could live that life in fear of this, right, at the end, or you can live that life in a way that that fulfills you and inspires you and inspires others and helps you be the best version of your individual self. Or you can be fearful and just fear that end, and that's the worst that's going to happen, folks. That is the worst that is going to happen, ultimately. And it will happen to all of us. So if we get over that, and it's hard to get over that, it really is. Oftentimes, we find that there's situations that we're in where we are fearing for our lives, right? Perhaps even right now, as the pandemic has been spreading around the globe. Maybe you are fearful that you'll get it and you'll catch the COVID and you'll die. Well, if that's the worst that's going to happen, that's the worst that's going to happen, right? We are all going to die at some point. But the sense that our emotions are uncontrollable, right? That our fears are rational. Yeah, they can be sometimes if we're in grave danger, if we're in immediate danger of, of being injured or hurt or, killed or whatever. Yes, then there's a reason, a foundation for that fear. But the unfounded fears, the ones that sort of are driven by emotion and by feeling, those are the ones that we can actually control. We can bring those under control through our own breath, through our own exploration of where that sense of fear or sadness or whatever it is coming from. If we can identify it, right? Oftentimes I'll ask my coaching clients to put a color, name the color of the sensation or the feeling once they've identified where it is. I mean, it may be in their chest, it may be in their gut, it may be in the back of the head or the neck or the shoulders or wherever, right? Once they've identified it, it's like, well, what color is it, right? And if you were to, sort of ascribe a sensation to that color, what would it be? And where else might you find that color in your body, and what sensation do you have there? I know it all sounds really woo-woo and almost maybe a bit irrational, but the reality is that once you've actually started to do that, and you've actually started to identify the emotion and the feeling and the thoughts that go around the emotion, right? Because millions and millions of thoughts over a lifetime can wrap around a single emotion. Once you actually get your head around identifying the emotion and the feeling, that's when you can actually start to shift things. And I think this period, this pandemic period, has really heightened a lot of our emotions and our feelings. Not just around ourself, our true self, but the people around us, the people we love, the people we care for. We become worried. We feel as if there are people at risk, and they're taking unnecessary risks. Sometimes those people do. And the thing is that, and I've said this numerous times before, you can't control what other people do. You can't control what other people think. You can't control what other people feel. All you have control over is your own emotions, yourself in most cases, for the most part, and your thoughts. Okay, those are the things that you have 100% control over. And yourself, your true self, you have 100% control over. But your body, the meat avatar that we're wearing, you probably don't have as much control as you might think over that. Hence the reason why people get cancers and people get other diseases, ALS and whatnot, and die. It's why people get the COVID and get gravely ill or even die. So the reality is that you have the control over the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, the sense of your inner true self, the essence of your being, but you do not truly have control over much else, right? And the emotions that we feel, that we latch onto, oftentimes drive our thought processes, and our fears are predominantly irrational, and things that we fear will happen may not necessarily happen. And those things that do happen, right? Oftentimes, we have this victim mentality where we feel that things are happening to us, right? But the reality is that if we can walk away, or we can move away from that sensation or that thought process that, things happen to us and around us, right? To a more proactive, I know that things happen and it's just the way that the world is, rather than taking it on your shoulders and thinking, oh, well, I have to bear all these emotions and these sensations because this is what I am and who I am. That's really ego driven, and that's the fight or flight sort of crock brain process of thinking than it is, and reacting, than it is actually sensing the true nature of the feeling and the emotion and the thought, and understanding the thought processes around it. So if we can take a step back when we're feeling these sensations of fear or sadness, and we can give ourselves some self-care, right? So that could be, if you're feeling sad or depressed or whatever, having a nice warm bath, or listening to some nice chilled music, or doing some yoga or breathing work, or just taking a gentle walk outside and, going for a nice casual, 10-15 minute walk outside. That can really change your mood and very quickly. And it can also help you release a lot of the sensations around the emotion, which often tighten up and make us feel worse, because once we actually start dwelling on the emotion without actually trying to identify the root cause, we start thinking about it more, we start feeling more and more sad or lonely or depressed, right? So if we can notice those thoughts and then start to identify them, what the source of where they're coming from, what the source of them are, right? I don't know whether that makes sense. What the source of those thoughts are. Then once we've identified that, that's when we can actually start to address it and release it and feel a little bit better about ourselves. And I know that it's hard. I really do, because I've been through it. Over these last couple of years, I've been through it a lot. There's been times when, I've felt things that I just didn't understand, and I didn't know how to deal with them. And my mind was racing, and there were millions of thoughts around these feelings and sensations and emotions. And thing is that, my mind was just going to the worst case scenario every single time that I would think about, something that really should have been positive and productive in my life. So by going to that worst case scenario, rather than trying to just kind of understand the underlying emotion behind it, which for me was a fear, which induced anxiety and depression and sadness and more fear and anger and all sorts of emotions. But the underlying undercurrent was a fear that I had not been able to identify or recognize. Once I was able to actually identify and recognize, and then say to myself, okay, that's an irrational fear, right? Because my true inner self, the true core of my being, is timeless, ageless, unbounded, and unshakable, unflappable, really. Once I actually got to that understanding and was able to embody that sensation and that feeling, that fear, that anxiety, that sensation disappeared. It was gone. And the thoughts behind it were gone, right? And the thoughts were what was ratcheting up. And the more I thought about something, the more I got anxious about it. And the more I got anxious about it, the more I thought about it. And it's just a vicious cycle that we can get into in our heads. But it was all based on this one emotion underlying a fear of loss. After having been through such a profound loss that I was afraid that it was going to happen again. But what I rationalized and what I understood and what I started to embody is that it will happen again. It will happen again and again and again, over and over and over and over. And that is because as human beings, as any being on this planet knows, or if they do know, if they have the cognizance to understand it, we all die. We will all perish from this earth at some point or another. Nobody and nothing lives forever. So, so once I actually got over that fear, then my entire body, my entire mind shifted. And these were the emotions that I was dealing with last year. And it's what's actually really, in many ways, more than being an introvert who stays indoors a lot, because I do actually like to, more than anything else, it's the work that I did at the tail end of 2019 that really helped me to be the person that I am now, the self that I am now. And that reaches out to all of you to try and hopefully help you cope with this period of challenge and uncertainty a little bit better. I don't know. Am I doing a good job? I have no idea. I don't know, if people are getting anything out of what I'm saying on a day-to-day basis. But, I'm here every day. I'm here each weekday to connect with you, to, just be here, right? To be that sort of constant stalwart that is here to chat with you every day, to say hello, to share insights and thoughts about, what it is that we're experiencing, what I'm experiencing. Because, of course, everything that I talk about is from me. It's from my heart. It's from my body, from my mind, from the experiences that I've had, the knowledge that I've gained, not just of my true self, but of the world that is around my true self, that I've been able to kind of accept and interpret over these last couple of years. And, and acceptance is a huge, huge step towards regulating our emotions and our feelings and our minds and our hearts. My yoga teacher once said that the hardest journey that we'll ever take, the longest journey that we'll ever take, is from the head to the heart. And it's only 15 inches, 12, 15 inches from our head to our heart. And it's the hardest journey we'll ever take. And she is absolutely right, because it was one of the hardest journeys I've ever had to take. But from an emotional, physical, spiritual, mental perspective, it was the most rewarding journey I've ever taken as well. I've tried to live from my heart on a day-to-day basis, leading with my heart rather than with my ego and my head and the fears and the irrational sort of behaviors and thoughts that I have, because the heart really does know the way. It's amazing how beautiful life can be. Even for those of us who have experienced some of the worst trauma and life changes that we could never wish on anyone, even our worst enemies. Leading with the heart, letting the heart open and be what leads you and guides you in all of your decisions. You'll never go wrong. And the emotions and the sensations that we feel as a result of leading with our hearts are so rewarding. It is such a rewarding thing to do, to lead with the heart, and with love, really. Like I say, everything that I do for you, for me, from me to you, is from my heart, is from a place of love and care and kindness. And no, I don't always get that right. I'm not always, spot on, but I do try to, well, actually, I'll quote Yoda here, do not try, only do. I do my best to lead from my heart all the time. And that is a really important aspect of life for me. And it's one of the most important things that I can do for the world, is to just keep putting out the love and the kindness and sending the energy and vibrations from my heart that I can send to you, people who are watching, and hopefully, like I said, getting something out of our daily conversations. And also, that you're able to understand that, if we can identify the emotions and the sensations and the feelings that we sense and that we have within us, once we actually start to do that, we can choose, right, to lead from the heart. We can identify that the heart and love is all we need. I mean, to quote John Lennon, love is all you need. And in terms of your outward demeanor, and if we all lead from a place of love rather than the small self, the selfishness that I think a lot of people want to lead from, because they're too closed off, they want to protect themselves, because they fear the unknown, they fear the sense of letting go and of maybe not identifying with their true self. So by doing that, they're doing a disservice not just to themselves but to the rest of the world. I mean, everybody has love and kindness and caring and empathy within them. Everybody. It's just a question of whether or not you choose as an individual to listen to your true inner self, versus that small voice that says I'm scared, or I'm fearful, or I'm sad, or I'm lonely. And in all honesty, I like to listen to the bigger booming voice that's deeper inside that says you're okay, and that helps me to identify those emotions that are causing me maybe to sense that I'm uncomfortable, or I'm sad, or I'm lonely, or I'm depressed, or whatever, or I'm angry, or whatnot. So by identifying those emotions and trying to lead from the heart, and a lot of times, just sort of sensing, touching, putting my hand on my heart, and actually, funny enough, my therapist tried this with me very early on in my therapy in 2019, and it didn't work. It took me months before I actually was able to feel that sensation of knowing that my heart is where basically the center of my universe is, and that sensation, that emotion, and that feeling really uplifted and gave me the sense of joy and happiness in my life, despite all of the trauma and tragedy and whatnot that I've had to live with over the years, and certainly in the last couple of years. So by doing that, and by finally being able to identify that I can live from my heart, I actually have a completely different outlook on life, a completely new vitality in many ways around my life and what I do. And I really make an effort to show up and to serve. And my service is to help people, and like you who are watching here, be and become the best version of you as I become the best version of me. I'm not there yet. I'm trying. I'm getting there. I'm saying that again. I don't want to keep trying. I want to do, right? Let's just do it, right? Take a page out of Nike's book. Let's just do it and become the best version of you. And, you joining me every day, which I really appreciate, this is my gift to you. My love for you as my friends, as my audience, as just people, as just beings like me, is love. And my gift is my love for you and to you. And the other gift is to just, help you become the best version of you. And hopefully you're getting a little bit out of this every day, and we're getting there. All right. So anyway, I've come up on my time. I really appreciate you taking your time to join me here at this lunchtime for my lunchtime broadcast. Very much appreciate it. I hope to see you tomorrow on our hump day of this week 6 of our splendid isolation, as I like to call it. Although I don't think everybody else feels that way. Our sort of self-quarantine, shelter in place, we're here. It's one of those things, unfortunately, but I do really appreciate you, and I thank you from my heart to you for joining me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.